What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Deadly Draw podcast. Here we are, guys, middle of August, episode 24. Month away from season opener.
Flying by.
Been a month away.
Less than a month away,
Yeah.
yeah. It's about 28 days or something,
Something
right?
like that.
Yep.
Only
Getting
2
close.
weeks for you to maybe start throwing some arrows around.
Maybe something's got to show up, though.
You got a camera on it now?
I got a camera
Yeah.
on it. I stopped and checked it today right after work because I was like, this camera's broken. It's got to be broken.
Is this a cell cam?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Not a crow, not a raccoon, not a deer walk, nothing.
That seems
Not
weird.
one picture.
Boy, I would have thought that them things would have been in there immediately on that bait
You
pile.
laid out the red carpet, nothing wanted to show
Nothing
up.
wants
huh?
to play. No.
What the
Must have stunk when he brought that stuff in there.
It
or
does
something.
stink. Stinks good.
Yeah, that video that you sent me, that was pretty funny.
Oh boy, I'll tell you what. I'll bring some of it next week.
Is it strong? 'Cause I know Andy was saying, he's like, you cracked the top
Oh,
of that
my
thing, and he's
God.
like, that's all you can smell for like a while, even
I
after
opened
you
up
put
my
the lid
mailbox
back on it.
when the package showed up. I opened up my mailbox and I was like, "Whoa, what the?" I forgot it was coming that day, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
And that's like a butterscotch, you
Yeah.
said?
Super concentrate. It's like, yeah, it's an 8-ounce bottle. It'll treat like 40 gallons of oil or some shit like that.
Wow.
You only need a couple
Just a little
capfuls.
bit.
Yeah, not much.
So it takes over then.
Oh yeah.
You had the old super soaker out there.
Yep. Sprayed her all down, and after the rain, kind of. So I went out today and soaked everything down
Oh, did
again
ya?
and stirred the bait, and I don't know. Checked the camera.
Yeah.
Made sure the camera's still working.
I mean, we have had easterly winds. So
I know, but
that's not helping at least
No.
get that bait sent to back to where you think they might be
Right.
coming from. But
Right.
let it soak.
yeah,
See what happens. So
you got a couple
Yeah.
weeks yet.
They'll show up.
I hope so. Otherwise, Peterson's buying all my bait.
Oh, really?
Well, he's got 3 bait sites up north, and yeah, they put bait out, and in 45 minutes they were getting chewed on.
Pictures?
Yeah.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
But
And that's a draw up
They're
there,
draw
right? So you
zones,
can't
yep.
just
no.
be like, hey, let me come with
No.
you next weekend, or
No.
yeah. So no over the counter or nothing like that.
No.
Right on. Yeah, we finally had like an all day mist out here, and we did actually get a little bit of rain earlier today too, so that was good to see. And
That's good.
my rut greens are
Start
the
to pop.
the donut is slowly starting to fill in because it's
Right.
all the outside edges,
Yeah.
and like obviously all the shaded and lower spots are doing good, but the middles and the main parts of my plots are they're starting to sprout now, and now we got all this mist, so I'm hoping that things will kick off here.
Should get her going.
We should have dew every morning from here on out, I would think. So
Good temps during the day, nothing crazy hot, but
yeah,
should be
So,
good. It should take off.
things are looking good that way. Went out and my legs hurt today, man. I frickin' hit leg day hard yesterday, going up and down ridges and putting miles on, back on another piece, and I did find a couple nice spots that were dropped. They're already dropping big green acorns and stuff, so kind of logged that and hung a camera in that area. And no pictures yet, but I think it's only a matter of time before they're hitting them acorns.
They're
and
going
they're
to
running them
destroy
ridges.
acorns.
So.
Acorns are going to be huge, at least in this area.
Yeah.
My trees are, the white oaks anyway,
Yeah, that's what I got.
are clumps. I mean, just clumps and clumps and clumps.
Yeah, these are reds, but
Yeah.
in that particular spot a couple of years ago, I passed on a 2-year-old in there that's how I didn't hear him walking up. I heard him crunching on the acorns. That's how I freaking knew he was in there, because he was just hammering
Well,
on them.
that's
But
that closest rut greens plot is surrounded by white oaks.
yeah, dude, that's
So,
a money spot.
and yeah, you're going to have to come over one night with your camera, and I got a
See if we
spot set
can't
up
catch
with a
'em out there.
tripod that we can just sit back and
Maybe
watch 'em.
Wednesday, because I'm going to be in town for this event thing that I have to go to from like 5 to 8.
Okay.
I'll probably be done with that earlier, so maybe I'll just
Give me
go
a call.
from there.
You just got to watch the wind. If it's a shitty wind, we'll see. But
Right.
I think that's where I got in trouble last night, as they ended up catching my wind. It was kind of swirling, and all of a sudden I looked up, crawling through the grass, and they were gone.
Oh, really?
So Hopefully
That was
I
cool
didn't
though. You got
jump
to
them
see
too
some
bad.
daylight buck activity
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, that was like right around 7 o'clock. So
Awesome.
yeah, and it's holding up. So as far as amount of food out there, doesn't even look like they've been in it.
Really?
Yeah.
And they're hammering.
They're
I mean,
in
that
there
video,
every
that trail
frickin'
cam
night,
video
dude.
that you sent us, I mean, they had mouthfuls
Yeah.
every time they were coming up.
3,
so.
4, 5 of them, and hopefully it holds up. We'll see.
Yeah.
I sent that to the boys over at Monster Bucks,
Yeah.
and they're like, man, you might want to get some overcast or some no huddle and get it ready to throw in there because.
Filling those spots.
Well, and I'm not over concerned about that spot, right? I just
Right, 'cause
wanted
hopefully they
something there for
transition
more food for them. But
back further to
Yeah.
your hunting areas,
Right.
you know. But not saying you can't hunt there, but
no, but leave my hunt plots alone for a while anyway. So
yeah, that'd be a very less intrusive, easy access. That one up closer by the house to where they're probably getting sense of
Used
your
to
house and
moving
stuff
around
anyway.
in the yard
Over
anyhow,
there.
we're
so-
only 150 yards from them when they're standing in front of the camera, and we're out on the patio. So
Did you have the old netting and stuff on? Were you getting hammered
No, I
out there?
sprayed down pretty good though. Sweatshirt.
So they smelled the DEET probably.
Probably or whatever.
Well,
human
better that
scent,
than
but
human scent, I
I'm
guess,
sure
but-
they smell you over that anything. Anyway.
Maybe picked up a little bush light or something.
Yeah,
in
it
the
could have
air.
been a little barley smell. I could have smelled something like that.
Right on. Well, guys, another guest today. A very smart guest, from what I gather, just off of the things that I had been checking out and looking at. But we're going to talk with Zach Haas from the EHD Fence, kind of a EHD solution water treatment type program. The company that I believe he is the owner. If not, he's heavily involved with it. He's a aquatic biologist for, I believe, 20 plus years. So kind of once we started seeing stuff on it, we had a discussion on, maybe we should at least talk with them. I don't know
Right.
all the ins and outs about the EHD stuff, but it'd be fun to learn from somebody that's been
Around
on the
for a
front
while,
line of it now, and just to kind of and to get more attention and attraction on it, because I think it is important. I mean, I think we're just going to hear more and more about it
Yep.
with these mild winters and stuff like that. So
For sure.
we'll take a couple minutes, we'll get him linked up, and we'll see you guys then. All right, what's going on, man?
Not too much. I've been in the house all day because it's pouring rain here right now in Wisconsin.
Okay, so you are in Wisconsin.
Yep.
For some reason, I was thinking you were down in Iowa, but
No,
rain, Dave.
I mean, I ventured there enough, put it that way. But no, I'm in southeast Wisconsin here, and yeah, like right now we're dealing with some rain spells, which is good because we were going through about a 2.5 week drought spell. So it's nice to see the rain.
Dry.
right on. Well, for the listeners and stuff, if you don't mind, if you could give a introduction and kind of your background and kind of maybe break down EHD a little bit more for us. That way we don't sound like dummies.
Alright. Yeah, so my name's Zach Haas. So I'm the owner of Creek Bottom Land Management, so land management company here in Wisconsin. But before I actually did that, I was an aquatic biologist. So I actually did pond and lake management for nearly 20 years, where I went across our whole state of Wisconsin, helped some people in Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota helping manage their ponds for you name it. I mean, and then anything from campgrounds, municipalities, swimming ponds, fishing ponds. I've seen it all, from little tiny wildlife ponds up to 1,500, 2,000 acre lakes. I've helped manage them. So when it all kind of went down to it, and kind of my background where I kind of got started with EHD is, so when I was fresh out of college, I did what every college should do, and I took my first paycheck and I got a lease down in Missouri. So, because that made sense. Why use it for like paying off student loans? No, let's get a hunting lease. So, anyways, so I got this lease down in Missouri, and that was back in I think 2012, and I was excited because in here, Wisconsin, it was like we were pumped if we were getting 150, right? And going down to Missouri, Iowa, well, so we're in the land of giants. We're getting bucks on camera that were, I mean, the biggest one, we nicknamed Godzilla because the deer was probably tickling 200. And so I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like we're in the money now. So me and my buddies were all pumped, and then it got closer to season. We got to that August time frame, and every single mature deer except for one mature deer was left. And at the time, EHD wasn't really on top of a lot of people's minds. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell happened. I just figured maybe this lease is just a summering area for the deer or what. So I talked to a gentleman across the road that had 400 acres, and he figured that 80% of the deer were dead just that year. So once again, poor college kid going, sweet, I spent my money in the right spot. Awesome. Because I could have paid a couple months of student loans off. But so anyways, when I started with the Pond and Lake Management Company I worked for, I was initially our research director. So my whole role was actually to take products and take different things, test them in the actual field, and see what works, do case studies on it and all that. And well, for me being an avid deer hunter, I went, well, I'm going to dive into the EHD on myself and get to the bottom of this, because obviously it hit me hard. I didn't get a buck down there, all that. So I went into the rabbit hole deep, way too deep. And with that said, I started talking to my professors at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, talking to professors, Montana State, Colorado State, Wyoming State, because at the time, when we heard of EHD, everyone just thought of blue tongue. So I just knew that all the Western states had blue tongue issues. So I was reaching out to these professors and figuring out, okay, what is the derivative that makes this midge so bad? And it got to the point where I requested actually a live midge, and they wouldn't send me one because I wanted to see what I could do to kill it. But with that said, everyone, the entomologists I talked to, that always came down to that the midge prefers obviously organic, rich, poor water quality. And it also does not fare well with competition. So other predatory insects and invertebrates and amphibians, it doesn't do well in those conditions. So I'm like, okay. So then I started to take products into it and figuring, okay, what can we do to obviously solve this issue and fix it? So I started testing my own little ponds and even bigger ponds, my client ponds. And one thing neat about it is the light bulb went on when I started taking care of these ponds across our state. And clients would start going to me and be like, hey, ever since you started treating algae and plants and adding beneficial bacteria and enzymes and actually taking care of water, we don't get bit by mosquitoes anymore. We don't have the bug issues anymore. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So just from obviously restoring an ecosystem, suddenly we saw less bugs. We saw less issues. People weren't getting bit. They weren't having these issues. And also me, I was also a duck hunter, and I did a lot of North Dakota duck hunting. Well, what do you always hear out there? Planktonic algae and all these different toxins that go out there and kill dogs, like Leptosporidium, for instance, a bacterial infection a dog can get. So anyways, it all boiled down to, so I've been kind of working on this for a lot of years before the product, which we'll get into later, came out. But, so EHD itself, kind of going into brief history, the first ever case was in 1955, at least identified, and that was in New Jersey. So a state we never hear of now. When we think VHD, we think of Iowa, we think of Illinois, Ohio, obviously. We don't think New Jersey. Well, then the next case wasn't until 1972. And the next case after that wasn't until like the 90s. So there was these big gaps of no EHD or just really sporadic cases. It was like, okay, whatever. It's just a phenomenon, right? No, deer hunters, don't worry. We got this under control. We're fine. And then we started getting into what I would say is like the worst cases that I remember is 2012. And that's when I had my lease. But that's when I heard of all these farms in Iowa. Bucks being found dead everywhere. I mean, the rebuild is still occurring in that state. People don't want to admit it, but it's still happening. Well, now suddenly Ohio wasn't worried about it. Indiana wasn't worried about it. All these states. Now we're into those states where we're having issues. Even ours, Western Wisconsin's getting hit. And the research I've done on it is it's a little bit involved with the airstream changing and all these fronts and everything changing. Like obviously, and everyone wants to get scared of using climate change because they think it's such a left point of view. But climate change is a thing that's happened since the dawn of time. It's just that it's accelerated, and we're seeing that change, right? I mean, as you guys know, we don't get the frost as soon as we used to get. We're not seeing the winters we used to get. Right. So because you guys are Minnesota, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So like you guys aren't seeing the snow, like we're not seeing the snow. I mean, last year I plowed snow once. It was stupid. So it's no different with the midge as the mosquito. You need that first killing frost, 28 degrees to take out the bug. Well, that can be November now. That can be December. I mean, especially if you think, Kentucky, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, you start taking a little bit south of us, that's super late.
Yeah.
Even when I was at Lee Lukoski's farm, he's like, we don't get the cold until November. Well, now you have bugs that are active all the way to that point. So that many more deer are obviously seeing it. They're getting introduced, you could say, to the midge. But on the other side of it, so we have that the midge is getting worse and worse. But then, too, there is a correlation between changes of even land use. Obviously, there's a lot more commercial farming now. There's less prairies. There's less buffers. I mean, you guys are in a state like we are where, we have water everywhere. I mean, you guys are, the land of 10,000 lakes, and, we have marshes everywhere. So we have these buffers. But most of these states, I'm seeing prairies going away. There's no buffers. There's that row. The farmer wants to take away the fence line to get that row of corn as tight to the creek as he can. And like in our state here, we've lost over 70% of our trout streams, and that's all pollution. That's 100% pollution based. That's it. There's no other reason. A little bit of chemical and all that kind of stuff, but we're losing trout. Well, trout are super susceptible to any kind of pollution, and so are your beneficial organisms, your inverts, your amphibians, your insects. And now, if we lose all that, we lose all the good, what's left to eat the midge? Absolutely nothing. There isn't. There's no predator. There's no food chain. There's no ecosystem. And the other part of it is unique about the midge. It also, like I seen a guy comment the other day, he's like, just add salt to your ponds. That'll take care of it. Except for they also can tolerate high salinity. So they can deal with salt. Well, so if you do that, you just killed everything but the midge. So you just accelerate it. So that's the quick nutshell, I guess you could say, on the history of EHD and kind of where we are. Obviously it's one of those things, with EHD, and I can kind of talk about symptoms a little bit, but it's not like we're seeing in CWD, like we have our zones, and I know you guys have your zones. A deer could have that for 3 to 5 years, and you'll never know that deer's sick. EHD, a deer gets, a midge bites it, a female midge bites it. You're talking, in some cases, it's 48 to 72 hours that deer's dead. Wow. I mean, 2-3 days, and you just lost, let's just say, a buck you've been hunting 3 years, he's dead. He's laying belly up in the river. And now there's other cases it's like 10 to 15 days, and I've even, like when I was talking to Lee Lukoski, he's seeing some deer that will get it, but then the rut is what actually ultimately takes him out. So like he has EHD, and they're doing, he's doing a lot of feeding and mineral and all that, but with that said, they're getting healthier, but then the rut happens when they lose about 28% of their body weight. They can't take it. They just die. And that's it. So that life cycle is what I've been targeting with this product, EHD Fence, because everyone just thinks it's mud flats. We want to talk to mud flats. Mud. I mean, I always laugh because in my seminars, I always say, when was mud created? Well, it's when God put it on his planet. It wasn't that he was just like, all right, we need mud because we need midges. No, it didn't happen that way. We've always had mud. But we haven't had the pollutants. We haven't had the land use changes, years ago. And, so as we went into it, I started diving into it with EHD Fence, I went, okay, so we got to really obviously figure out their life cycle, because there has to be a point. Why is it always water related? Well, when you think about it, okay, so everyone wants, yes, they do lay their eggs in the mud. In the mud flats, exactly where they lay their eggs. However, they develop into a larva, which starts developing in the mud, but then there is a stage where it leaves that larval stage before it's an adult, and that's called the pupa stage. And that is when it's a free-swimming individual. And the mosquitoes do it the same way, where they'll actually rise to the top of the water surface, essentially. So we get to that point where now we have it where, okay, this larva is emerging, it turns into a pupa, well, that's when it can get fed on by dragonflies, scavenger beetles, water boatmen. All these things actually prey and feed on that pupa and that advanced larva. So if you don't have the ecosystem, you don't have anything eating it. And that's where the ecosystem restoration of EHD Fence comes into play. So I know that's a lot. I threw a lot at you guys quick.
Okay. Yeah, no, and
Makes sense.
it's yeah, I mean, when you have someone like yourself with that knowledge and that background on it to actually explain it to you, it makes total sense of what you're saying. I'm kind of interested in what your take is on, going back to like the pollution thing, say like in the streams and stuff over in Wisconsin and stuff. Do you accredit most of that to like field spraying and stuff, or is that just kind of everything all combined, or what do you think is causing most of that, like field runoff or?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it's agriculture runoff's a big one. So when we're going in here, obviously, like, what are we seeing a lot of? And like I said, I'm not trying to knock farmers by no means, but
Right.
when we look at now, they're doing deep injection of manure. They used to never do that. So all that's going into the stream system, super loading the nutrients, and now we're getting all this excessive algae growth, plant growth, all these different things. But also, there's so many ways that all that nutrient loading kills a lot of that beneficial life, and so we're seeing a lot of that issue. So it's mainly improper use of chemicals, which I'm seeing nonstop. I mean, that's why we have so many resistant weed species now, is because no one knows how to read a label. But then also it's manure use and fertilizer use, and us deer hunters are no better. I mean, I hate to pin us, but I think of a guy that has a food plot, and what does he do? He spreads fertilizer right next to his wildlife pond, and sprinkle a little something in there. No big deal, it'll be fine. And so a lot of that is derivative of that. It's the runoff. I mean, and there too, like, it doesn't help when we get these crazy rains we've had. Like, I remember one last year, we had 9 inches in one storm. It's ridiculous. I mean, the groundwater can't handle that. So all that just rushes into this water, and just destroys everything quick. I mean, it happens quick too. Like, I've seen a pond go south in a matter of a week, depending on how the weather changed and all that kind of stuff.
Crazy. So going back to people going to try and get ahead of this and to get with the product of what you're working with now. I know that you have some type of like volume measurements and stuff like that you base it off of. Is there, so say just a dummy like me, I got there's a drainage ditch through one of my fields or something like that where I know that, the water can get stagnant and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For me to actually like get a calculation or a measurement on there, what would be the easiest solution to figure out how much I need or whatever, like the volume?
Yeah, so I designed it to essentially do 5 of your water tubs, your smaller tanks, deer ponds, things that way. It can do up to 5 of those for a whole season for 5 months. Or on the other side, it can do another pond that's, let's just say, 20 foot in diameter, 25 foot, 30 foot diameter. It's just a smaller wildlife pond. It can do one of those for an entire season as well.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, and so like, honestly too, and I just made a chart the other day too, because I had a lot of guys with bigger ponds too that were confused. Like, oh shit, if I have this bigger pond, I need 320 kits. No, you don't have to spend $50,000. I'm telling you, that's not how this works at all. So I just put a chart out the other day for that. But honestly, if it's one of those things, like I have one property, for instance, in Wisconsin here I'm managing that has 3 ponds that are 20 foot diameter. I use 2 kits on that property all year. So it's one of those things that what I kind of tell everyone is start with a kit, and you'll see what the pond needs. You'll see when it starts improving. Some ponds don't need as much. Some need a lot. So to me, it's kind of gauging like, okay, if I have, let's say 3 ponds, so the kit, and kind of go into it, there's 5 pouches or 6 pouches in there, right? No, 5 pouches. So there's 5 of these pouches in there. So in a way, if you have 2 ponds, start out with a kit and start treating it. So it's one of those things that how I've always kind of worked it, and this is even going on my bigger clients, is add it until you see the improvements, because then you'll figure out what it needs. It's no different than when you start planning your fields. You're like, well, this field is really crappy. I need more urea, or I need more phosphorus, potassium. You'll figure that out over time. But to me, overall, like I've done most of my ponds that have smaller and when I say smaller, I'm saying under 30 foot diameter ponds. But most of those properties I'm managing with 1 or 2 kits for entire season.
Okay. So definitely, reasonable.
Yeah.
That was kind of one of my biggest questions was, how often the treatment was, and, how to, depending on what volume you had, how much you were going to have to treat it and how
Yeah.
often you were going to have to treat it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is like, for us it's a little different because we get colder, but usually you want to start treating your ponds in April or May, and finish up in September, October, because it's one of those things you kind of want to wake the pond up with the products, and it's just a maintenance program, just like when, like I said, we're doing anything, prairies, timber, food plots. It's a maintenance program, but then as it cools down and we finally get those cooler nights, that's when the biological processes in a pond start also dwindling and shutting down. So, riskily, you kind of watch the weather. Like some of these states, if it stays really warm, you might have to treat longer. So to me, like once you figure out how many kits you need, plan on getting one more. And that's just for just the, all right, if the season went longer or a pond needed more. Or the other thing I always tell people too is rainstorms. Rain affects a lot of these ponds. You get one big runoff event, we always call that a nutrient loading event. So anytime you have that event occur, you should go actually out the next day or a couple days and you should treat that pond to treat any new nutrients that came into the water.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of like an ongoing cycle of,
Yep.
you might be able to get it just right and then have a
Yep.
big event happen and start you right back from scratch again.
Like playing with your pool, basically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And there's a lot of other things too, and that's the thing is like obviously, it's one of those things. We have this product, right? But there's so many things we should be doing with water too. Like I just put a post out today, like kind of an emergency, like hey, what should we be doing? Yeah, the EHD fence is part of that, but like crick systems comes up a lot. Well, what if I just have a crick on the property? Well, get water out and away from that crick. Get fresh water somewhere else on your property that the deer can get to, or something closer to their bedding zone. Don't, in a way, give them that good water quality source closer to where they actually are. Don't make them walk down to that creek that has midges. So that's a big part of it too. And that's not me trying to peddle nothing or sell anything. That's just, that to me, that's just logic where it's like, okay, get that quality water in between the deer and the problem. So like we did that on a property this year where we actually put tanks up in a food plot while a pond was getting reconstructed just so they wouldn't have the midge issues in this soup hole of a pond. All right, let's put up another tank just out of the way. We know it's not going to have the midge issue. Just get the deer the quality of water that they need so we know they're not going down to that creek and sludgy pond in the meantime.
So when that happens and those midges, they're focused in that area. How far do they travel away from that mud pond area? Do they go quite a ways, or do they tend to stay near that mud? Or
yeah, so the female herself, if she has a steady blood supply at that area, she's going to stay there. She's going to do her 3-4 cycles of eggs, and that's going to be her home. Now there is some research that shows let's say if you get 40-50 mile per hour winds, it could blow those midges around, a property that way too. So that's why it's so important to, on your own property, make sure that each pond is taken care of. But ultimately, it's like anything. I relate it to fisheries a lot. So like if you have a northern pike and he has a good feeding zone, well, guess what? You can keep going back to that same spot and probably catching that same fish because he ain't leaving that spot because he has food. It's no different with this midge. If she has her blood supply, which is unfortunately our white-tailed deer, she's going to stay around that impaired water source.
do they? I mean, they're not just deer specific. They're landing on whatever they can get in and bite, though. I'm assuming, right?
Yes, I mean, ultimately they need mammalian blood to actually produce the eggs. And part of that is like livestock's a biggie. So they will go on cattle nonstop. And that's a lot of times how they actually contract the virus is from cattle. So its cow will have EHD, but it's been treated with ivermectin. And all right, the cow's not affected, but the midge goes, and that's why I'm not a big fan of cattle ponds, especially if you go down to Iowa, because they're littered with the midge. But now they go from that cattle, they bite that, and now all it takes them to swim back to or fly back to their little mud pit. Now the deer goes and drinks from there, and it obviously contracts EHD. So, anyways, yeah. So I mean, when it comes down to it, the midge, she's going to get her life cycle in. She's going to produce her eggs. She's going to want that blood supply nonstop. So unfortunately, and that's why we always see big bucks dead, right? They have the most steady supply of blood of other headsmen are in velvet. That's why we don't see as many does. We don't see as many spikes. I mean, they're still getting bit. All right. Especially low deer density areas, but that big buck has the most blood supply right next to the water when they're drinking.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Now, does it take multiple bites from these, or just one can be enough to?
One could be enough.
end
It's
them?
it's no different than like a mosquito can get West Nile virus and bite a horse once, and the horse can die from it. So it's no different once that's in that system. It's no different than a tick. We can get bit by a tick that has Lyme disease. Once it's embedded in us, it's that one-time occurrence, and suddenly we have Lyme disease. So no different with the Achilles-Codes midge.
Man, it's just nasty how quick and just how brutal it can be on a herd. I mean, you hear about, especially like when you were talking about going down to Lee and Tiffany's farm there, it's like, these guys have tons of time and money involved in, and taking and doing all the right things they think that they're doing for these deer herds and stuff down there. And then you just see it come through and wipe everything out. It's just devastating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already seeing like in these, and you guys probably have too, like in Ohio right now, there's counties that are getting just hammered with it right now. I mean, and here again, we're all hunters, so this is the time of year we're supposed to be excited. We're supposed to be going like, okay, I know my target buck, I know where my stand is, I'm doing stand clearing, food plots are looking great, and then you find the buck dead in your pond, you're going, cool. All right, I spent all that time, all that money, that big investment into it just for it to disappear. And it's not even just big bucks, right? I mean, if a kid's going after his first buck ever, well, you lose your deer herd, and so the whole hunting community is affected. So it's not just big deer. I mean, that's what we're seeing, right? Because that's the only thing that gets publicity is a big deer. But in the day, if all you have on your property is, let's say, 110, 120 inch deer, and they're there, they're going to get bit too. And then every year, as you start losing mature deer, and what I've seen is in these EHD ridden areas is, all right, let's say you lose those 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds that first time. You get hit again. Now you lost your threes. Get hit again. Now so your whole age structure just went to the wayside. And now we're just hunting Michigan 11 pointers. So we don't want that. So to the end of the day, I mean, for me, I mean, and this is what I obviously I do for a living is management of properties, but when I think of like cost that goes into food plots, into timber stand improvements, into prairie maintenance, I mean, they're astronomical numbers. Something like this is $45 a month. That's what it comes down to. Well, to me, that's nothing. I mean, let's be honest. Most of us have 4 times that cost in cell cam subscriptions. So to me, it's such a little bit. But then there's other things that go into it too. Like EHD fence is part of it. But also, if you have natural ponds, putting plants around that pond edge is also a biggie. So getting sedges, rushes, all these different plants around the edge, and they do a couple things. So one, natural aquatic plants will naturally filter out the pond of nutrients. It'll take out phosphorus, it'll take out nitrogen, but it'll also provide a root system for beneficial bacteria to grow on. It'll provide habitat for frogs that won't get preyed on by, let's say, egrets or herons, but also dragonfly, which is a primary predator of the midge, actually hunts from perches. I mean, I call it the bow hunter of the water world. It goes up on its perch and that's all it hunts. So it'll sit there, it'll look and see a midge and go after it. That's just how they hunt. So putting plants around these ponds is also a part of this component. So like I published an article back in 2016 and it was called EHD Issues and Aquatic Solutions. And it went into everything. I mean, the beneficial bacteria and enzymes is obviously the EHD fence portion, but I talked about plants. I talked about proper ways to build a pond so you can actually have quality water. And it goes even above and beyond, like I think of even bacterial issues. So if you have, let's just say, Salmonella, E. coli, Leptosporidium, a deer gets that, they're already sick. Deer get, and that's one thing people forget about. Deer get sick all the time. They're always sick. It's no different than our dogs, our pets, us. You get a cold, deer do the same thing. Well, if they go to one pond that's poor water quality and they get a bacterial infection, and now they go to a pond that has Achilles-Codes midge, they have no chance. Their health is already diminished. So you can go in there and the bacteria will actually outcompete the harmful bacteria, these Salmonella, E. coli, and all that. and take them out of the system. So, for instance, like campgrounds was a big portion of my industry I managed. They couldn't have bacteria. I mean, if there was E. coli, salmonella, they shut down the whole campground. So
Sure.
when we applied these products that are in EH Defense, and we had to do weekly testing and from usually the local municipality, our numbers, they were undetectable. We could never detect a harmful bacterial strain in these ponds just by using these products. But then on the other side too is then when you're stripping nutrients, you're also not allowing blue-green algae to take over, your planktonic algae. And you guys probably know this being close enough to Wisconsin, but like we have Lake Winnebago in the middle of our state, a giant lake. Certain times, like actually right now, you go to parts of that lake, it looks like someone poured paint cans of green paint into the lake. It's nasty. And I'm sure you guys seen those kind of ponds across Minnesota too.
Yep.
And it's all because of nutrient runoff, pollution, all those kind of things. But now you have planktonic algae and blue-green algae that have dermal toxins, gastrointestinal toxins. Once again, it all goes back to herd health. And to me, I want that deer to be able to take quality water, drink it, not contract any of these harmful pathogens, but also restore that ecosystem so we're having this beneficial life and food chain to take the midge out of play. And to kind of go into one portion of the product, it's called D-muck. So it's a pelletized bacteria. And so it's a muck reducer. And so like I've been doing studies on this product for a while. And one of my case studies that I had that's published, scholarly article, in 1 year, I reduced organic sediment by 7.21 inches. That's a lot of muck.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just say it's a 10-story condo for the midge. You just took away 7 stories. It's a lot of home.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So you start doing that naturally, and because another thing I've always heard is people are like, well, is there anything you can kill the bug with? Sure, there's some things out there, but they also haven't ever been proven to work that well. They'll kill some, but also you got to keep retreating nonstop. Every time you got to be watching for a new hatch and respraying the whole area. So like
And
there's
what else? What
Go ahead.
else is it killing?
Correct, 100%. And that's my big issue with it. So like I'm a commercial applicator for our state, so like I've sprayed some crazy shit. So I mean, I've had stuff that has the skull and crossbones label where I'm full Tyvek suit and respirator, all that kind of stuff. I mean, spraying rotenone to kill fish and all this kind of stuff. I mean, crazy stuff that I've used. And to put something like that into the general folks' hand scares the living hell out of me because it'll be overused, abused. And now, if it's not used correctly, just like I talked about weeds and terrestrial work, now you just made a midge that's also tolerant of that. Now there's nothing in play at all. So this way we're using all the products in EH Defense are 100% natural. They're naturally occurring in the ecosystem. They're safe for pets, people, wildlife, you name it. I mean, this is all stuff that, like I said, I put in swimming ponds, recreational ponds. I put in my own personal pond where my kids swim. It's all natural. It doesn't have any harmful impact to our world, to Mother Nature at all. But if the food chain's not there, and I always compare it to fisheries, you can take a pond or a lake even that has no good predator, but it has bluegills. What happens? There's a bunch of 3-inch bluegills.
Mm-hmm.
There's no food chain. Well, now you got to go back in there, and what do they usually do? Well, we introduce tiger muskie, northern pike, largemouth bass. So your predator comes in play, and in 1 to 2 seasons, that whole fish hatchery gets put back to where it needs to be. And this is no different with the midge. And that's where like my crazy mind works. Is I always compare my fisheries and biology part to our deer hunting. Is if we can blend the two and restore that ecosystem, and once again, put that northern pike out there in a way, this is called the dragonfly. He can start restoring that, killing these midge, eating these midge, and before you know it, we don't have the issues. If you go to a pond, lake, river, stream, I don't care what it is, if it's a water body and there is no living life in there, that's a red flag. If you do not see, beetles on the surface, you don't see the frogs, you don't see turtles, you don't see dragonflies, that tells me the water system's dead. Well, that's what the midge loves. It loves dead water.
So going over toward like more of like that stagnant water type stuff, are you seeing a lot of cases like in the North Dakota area and stuff like that? I mean, I know there's a lot of just small little basically like water holes out in fields that, you know, are catching a lot of hell as far as runoff, and, you know, they get nasty, and duck
Yep.
sloughs and that type of stuff. Is that kind of a pretty prone area for that to, I guess I don't hear it too often, you know, coming from that way, but
Yeah, no, I mean the Dakotas, unfortunately, they have it worse than most because the western part of their state gets blue tongue, their eastern part of the state gets EHD, and right in the middle they get both. So they're getting both variants of the virus impacting their state. So like I'll hear of guys that I have a couple buddies that go out there every year trying to velvet hunt, and they'll be like, "Yeah, this year there's all the deer are dead from EHD," and they just kind of like that's how they kind of say it. Where I'm like, "Well, that ain't that ain't good. We don't want to be acting like that. Whatever. Maybe next year's the year." No, no. So I see it a lot. We see here. I hear it a lot out there. It's just that it's not the big buck state that's advertised, right? I mean, that's half the issue here. It's no different than if you guys had cases in Minnesota. It's not going to be as advertised as Iowa is, you know. So the big buck states are the ones that get publicity on the HD, unfortunately. So we don't hear about some of these other states. Like I just had a gentleman I seen post on, I think it was like TikTok, but he is in North Carolina and he found a case of it. Well, you're not going to hear about anything in North Carolina. Once again, there's no. That's not the trophy world there. You know, I mean, they shoot a 120. They're drinking to the bar at 2 until 2 a.m. You know? So that's half our battle is just that part of it is the publicities. But yeah, I've heard in Dakotas, and then you get out west and they start having issues with a little bit with elk, but mule deer, pronghorn. There's actually some cases of bighorn sheep getting the virus, more so blue tongue. But I mean, you're talking now we have multiple mammalian species that are also getting it, and they're not getting that highlight.
So you mentioned blue tongue. What is the difference there? Are they completely different, or are they kind of one and the same? Or because I've always thought they were ran together, but
Yeah, so they're both
apparently not
so they're
so
both
much.
hemorrhagic diseases, and they're both actually passed by the same midge. Chilocodes is the same midge that passes both of them, and the symptoms 100% identical, and that's why they're always kind of used interchangeably. Is like, you know, oh, what's the difference? It looks like the same thing. So for years, I mean, I was guilty of it too. Where I was like, oh, blue tongue or EHD, and I used them interchangeably until I realized, well, it's a different variant. You know, and I hate to say it, it's kind of like that C word we dealt with a couple years ago, but there's variants of it. And like I saw Dr. Deere, James Kroll is posting like there's EH2, EHD2, and EHD6 and all that kind of stuff. So there's variants of the virus, but it's spread by the same midge. So that's our main target is we got to get rid of that midge, and it solves every part of the variant.
Gotcha.
now are you seeing, is it pretty much 100% non-survival rate once a whitetail gets bit, or have you seen any cases where they have maybe tested and they figured that the deer got rid of it or somehow lived through it? Or
Yeah, there are deer that are surviving. You know, so which is part of the side of it that we kind of need to have happen, honestly. So like the southern part of the U.S. has immunity. Those deer are actually immune for the most part to EHD. But that happened over a course of how many years of them having a fawn that is able to be immune and so on and so forth. So we need deer to be having fawns that survive, honestly. But a lot of times, yeah, you'll see it, and they'll actually have, and the most common is you'll see hoof issues on a deer that survives it. Like it'll actually look like almost like a glove. The hoof will look like you could slide it right off. So it shows actually the point where they caught the EHD and then they started regrowing their normal hoof back, but then they start limping and all this kind of stuff. So most people think like, oh, it's wounded or whatever. But so there are deer surviving it. It's just that we need those deer now to produce fawns. Well, unfortunately, unless you have a game farm or high fence, you can't really do anything with that. You know, now there was talk like at one point I know they were talking about bringing deer from the south up to Midwest and all that kind of stuff, but that gets messy because now you're talking high fence deer into wild deer, and that's just not the world that. Let's just be honest, they're never going to be approved.
What other diseases are you going to introduce to
Correct,
wherever, right?
100%, yeah. So so as time goes on, I do see that the deer themselves are going to fight it, but in the meantime, we got to do our part and we got to start solving this issue, and part of that is maintaining our herds, making sure there's a healthy herd number there too. I mean, there is also a part of that. If we have too high deer numbers, that can be bad too. Obviously, that's all carrying capacity and all that herd management, but you can't. Unfortunately, it would be nice if like the deer was like had a Rudolph nose. You're like, that one had EHD. Let's not kill. Let's not kill that doe. She's the good one. Let her live for 7 years. But it's not realistic, right? So to me, as long as we can reduce that midge, maybe less deer get bit, and if we can get a percentage of that survives, we're kind of in a way manipulating it to our advantage.
Okay. So going back to treating the ponds or treating your specific areas that you want to try and take care of on your own properties, is there a possibility of over treating? I mean, is there anything wrong with if you get too much of the product in there, or?
No. So the good thing is yeah, you can't over apply it. And because we know, once again, everyone gets happy and starts tossing stuff around, and you're like, oh, the whole kit's gone. Shit, I have 2 more ponds to do. But so they did a study, and just taking the demuck, the muck reducing bacteria, for instance, in a 1 acre pond, you would have to add 2 million pounds of the demuck pellets. Well, it ends up being like $50 million. So for one, I mean, unless you're Jeff Bezos, you don't have that cash flow, right? So it takes so much to ever get to a harmful level. And one cool thing is like these products, for instance, so like one of my clients was actually the Milwaukee County Zoo. So one of our biggest zoos in our state. These are products I used in there. And I mean, I was under a microscope when I went in there by their ichthyologists, their botanists, all these people. And I'm like, holy crap, this is got the whole team on top of me. But with that said, the only reason why I got approved is 100% natural and safe for their ecosystem. And and they had swans and all this kind of stuff, so we had to show the data that it's 100% safe. So it would take so much to actually hurt your ecosystem. If anything, you're just going to hurt your wallet first. Put it that way.
Sure. So going to like bigger quantities and stuff like that, and I know this may be a little bit of a rabbit hole jump here, but do you think that there may ever be some processes in place from the government or, from that sector? Or do you think that this is just another step that kind of like CWD, where it's helping manage keeping deer numbers down and stuff to where they wouldn't want to even try and combat this? Or
unfortunately, that side of the world is very stubborn. So it's no different than in our state here. We'd have these planktonic growth issues, right? And we would go to them like, hey, we have these natural products we can apply to the lake and restore the ecosystem. We can reduce phosphorus. We can reduce, start the nitrification cycle back up. We showed all this data, and they're like, no, we're just going to focus on treating the weeds. Well, that's not fixing this issue. So they're kind of blind to it because it doesn't go through their same process of all these other registrations, and they didn't think of it, unfortunately. So I could see more so where we see, like maybe a group like NRCS. Now that's a little bit different, because they are for a little bit more improving the ecosystem and all that kind of stuff. But I can see it more being like, National Wild Turkey Federation, National Deer Association. I could see it being more our entities that are in the outdoor world actually jumping on and helping out and being like, hey, all right, chapters, let's do a improvement project or whatever it might be. Like we have Wisconsin Waterfall Association, for instance. They do a lot of scrapes and all this kind of work in our state to build duck habitat. So I could see places like that being like, okay, this is part of our tool and management method to improve. So that's the part that I could see where maybe there's a little bit of government and association based up, but for them to actually undertake it, I just don't. For them, deer are not the top of their scale, right? I mean, sure. Until there would be a case, in my opinion, a case where a human would get epizootic hemorrhagic disease, I just can't see them caring too much.
Sure. Yeah, and it seems like a lot of the focus obviously still remains on the C word there, and I there's obviously speculation from all over the place on that part as far as it being financially driven and
yep.
in the right interest of certain groups and stuff like that. But I was just kind of curious of why there isn't more of a spotlight being put on this. I mean, we're hearing more and more about it now. It's not just these, slight cases here and there. It just seems like every year it's going to hit. It's just a matter of where and when, and you know what I mean? It's not really consistently in one area, at least from what I'm gathering, but
Yeah, and then honestly, even in our orchard industry too. I mean, what are their biggest things going on right now? Well, it's always food plots, it's always minerals, it's always feeds, all that kind of stuff. Like even this product, the EH Defense, it wasn't ever going to be in the realm other than I'm a water nerd at heart, and I correlated the two. Otherwise, I don't think there would even, to me, it's step one. Like, all right, let's start doing something. And that was my biggest thing why I wanted to get it out here on the market, because I'm thinking we're just shooting ourselves in the foot every single year and just hoping it doesn't happen. That's just not acceptable to me. Especially when I'm managing properties for other people. It's not acceptable. Like if they're like, yeah, Zach, I lost, 5 mature deer. Well, all the money they spend on me helping them manage is for naught. Well, that doesn't make me feel good either. Going home and doing like, well, all right, I just raked them over to coals and they didn't shoot a deer. No, that's not how I want it ever to be. So, to me, this is step one, and I have other stuff down the pipeline that I'm working on too. And constantly researching. Like another part of it, and I can't find a dang non-Chinese made thing, but is solar systems. Like I'm trying to figure out a affordable solar aeration system that we can put in small wildlife ponds to get circulation, get dissolved oxygen. Unfortunately, every time I buy one of the Chinese pieces of shit, it dies in 2 months. Damn,
Yeah.
Amazon, give me something good.
Timu's not knocking it out of the park by any means.
Right. So that's where it's like I have probably 3 or 4 products down the pipeline already that I want to bring out. But it's first getting education out on this. And to me, once again, you're talking $45 a month. And if you're doing like the tubs, it ends up being $9 a month. Well, that's just don't go to the bar on Friday night for 1 week.
Yeah, you spend more in gas just even working up food plots and stuff than, and I would think, just sitting here talking about it, what is the one thing that that animal needs? Water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
100%. I do seminars on water every single year, and people sometimes think I'm crazy, but water is the only thing that I know you can pattern a buck to during the rut. I've done it. I've killed bucks because of that. They don't need a feed. That's why they lose 28% of body weight. So they need water though, or they'll go and they'll cool off in a pond and all that kind of stuff. And all it takes is like once again that one time where he's in the wrong pond and he gets it. And that's one thing I want to point out too is just because you found a deer dead in a pond or a river or a stream doesn't mean he got it there. So don't automatically think this is the cause. No, it's just that's where he stumbled when he got his high fever and he died. So and the other part of it, I always like to point out is, and you guys probably have seen the comments where people are like, well, I can't treat every water hole on the premises. I can't do my neighbors. I can't do this. You're right. You can't do that. For one, you'd be in jail because you trespass everywhere. But 2, maybe it's not your neighbor's property. Maybe it's not the next place over. To me, it's the same logic of, well, if I don't shoot that buck, my neighbor will. Well, maybe you are the neighbor. So same goes with water. Maybe you are the neighbor. Like I think of farms I've hunted in Iowa, and I've gone to some where I'm like, oh, they have beautiful ponds and bass and crappie and all this kind of stuff in it, flourishing. But then I go on the next property, and it's just this crappy cattle pond, and it's disgusting. Cows are stepping in, they're crapping, they're peeing, and it's completely diminished. Maybe that's the source. So, like even when I was down by Lee, like you said, he's like, these deer, they're congregating for the most part on a 40 to 120 acre piece. They're always doing their excursions. We all know that. The data shows it. MSU Deer Lab's done a lot of that data. Yeah, they go on excursions, but in summertime, they're not moving. A lazy deer is a big deer. End of the day, he doesn't want to get up and walk, miles. It's just not what unless you're in northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, where those deer are the most nomadic things in the world. But with that said, it kind of goes back to my point too of put the water in the right spots, put it up high and dry, put it up away from the problem areas, but don't think because you don't have all the water, you can't fix some of the problem. And to me, it's all about reducing the potential. It's not a silver bullet. I'll say it right here. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a tool in our toolbox to get to where we need to go.
Yeah, no different than putting minerals out for them in the spring or whatever else,
Food plots, yeah.
food plots or whatever to try and keep your herds better.
Yeah, and part of it when I built this kit, once again, I'm a mature deer hunter. I love hunting big old deer. It's what I do. I also know intrusion's a big thing. The more you get in there, that buck tolerates it only so many times, right? So the kit is so simple. I mean, so like I videotaped myself doing it one day. It was 45 seconds, and I was done. I keep pouches in my tractor where I drive by and toss them in and keep driving. So it's super simple process too. It's not get your backpack, fill it with water, do this, calculate, get your measuring scoop. Okay, now you gotta go back to fill it up again. No, none of that. Just bring your bucket with. Like I have one in my side by side, I have one in my 4-wheeler, and like I said, I have some in my tractor. Just when I'm there, doing camera work, batteries, you name it, I do the work quick.
Nice.
Walk by and toss it in, basically, huh?
Yep.
So now, if say you got a smaller lake on your property, are
Yep.
you just flipping it in offshore, or are you actually taking your boat out there and dropping it in certain locations to get it more spread out?
Yeah, so like, if you have something bigger like that, so the pouch bacteria, that can be tossed anywhere and it's just going to start moving through. Now, your problem areas on a bigger water source are usually your shorelines. Like even when I used to do a lot of sediment testing in the wintertime, we'd go down in the middle of like a lake or pond, there would be barely any muck. Your shorelines, though, would be littered with it. So the pouches, they'll fill up essentially that water volume. Once they disperse, they'll start moving around, and that's why there's so many pouches as you go up in acreage. You just gotta go around the shoreline, toss them in. Then the enzyme, once again, it's just in this little, kind of looks like Sta-Bil or one of those mixed gas things, and you fill it up and you just pour it around the shoreline. And it's just no different than like if you had a glass of water here and you added pond dye or food dye to it, whatever, it's gonna fill up that water volume. This is how it's gonna work. So it's gonna spread. Now the demuck, that's one that you want to treat your problem areas. So if it's and that's what's kind of cool, but like I can use this on lake properties, for instance, lakefront properties where you can just treat around your dock. But that's one you do have to go around and kind of spread it where you want to reduce the sediment because they are slow moving bacteria.
Sure.
Going back to the intrusive part, and I'm sure this probably has already been a little bit of a light bulb in your brain if it's not already, but have you thought of like a auger or like an app automated deal where you could, stick that in your, by your pond or in the center of your pond, or you could just go on and activate it and have it do its thing? And I mean, I know it'd be a lot of thinking and stuff put involved into getting the right amounts put in there, but
Yeah, so one thing we used to do a lot in ponds, and this is when there's aerators, is we call it the biofeed metering system. So we would actually put an injection pump that went through a hose and actually injected bacteria and enzymes twice a day. And the only problem is, and now they have like a battery powered option, which it just be a matter of figuring out how to hook up the solar. But like most of it are 110, 120 volt systems. But we did that a lot. And to me, it was like how I always explained it was like taking your daily vitamins. So we would calculate out the volume, figure out how much. So it might be like, let's say if it's the catapult, the enzyme, it might be an ounce a day. And it pre-programs, injects it in. So once I can figure out a good solar aerator, that'll probably come with it.
yeah, that'd be pretty sweet because then you take that whole intrusive thing right out of the equation at that point. So,
Correct.
And then it's kind of like a set it and forget it type mentality. People aren't having to remember to go out and do it or anything. It's just fill up
Yep.
the hopper or fill up your little station there and kind of let it do its thing. But
100%. Yeah, and like even like, and I know some guys that they'll actually have the fish feeders, and they'll put the demuck in the fish feeder to spread it out in front of the areas that they want to treat. So there are those methods, but for the smaller ponds, like I said, I'm working on if I can first figure out the good solar aerator, then most likely an injection system will come just shortly down the road.
that'd be a huge one too for guys like in our area and stuff too, in your area as well. When you're seeing ponds freezing up by Thanksgiving.
Yep.
If you had a moving water source or an aerator that would help keep that pond open longer for the deer to utilize, that'd be huge.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's no different when I do consulting work and in the winter. If someone has a running spring, well, that's where the deer are all going. I mean, the tracks around a fresh spring creek is crazy in the wintertime because that's the only fresh water they got. In the summertime, it's different. And, I don't know if you guys looked into much of my videos prior, just like, The reason why deer like the ponds and things that way, and actually prefer it over the creeks, rivers, marshes, they like these small wildlife ponds because of the temperature. That's part of it. So when they drink it and it's warmer, it doesn't shock their internal systems as much as cold water does. And that's where they're smarter than us. Like, end of the day, we want ice cold beer, and we don't care that it shocked our system. Whatever, I'll get over that. But a deer, when your game is survival, that's everything. So that's a big role of that. Plus, the other part of it with these smaller natural ponds and line ponds is mineral enrichment. Like when people say deer like dirty water, it's not that they like crappy water. They don't. But if it has mineral enriched water, I'm not saying the additive minerals, but just naturally enriched from runoff, from soils maybe that went in there, they'll actually go to those just to get that mineral intake as well.
That makes sense. Total sense.
How long have you had this product out now?
So we launched it July 1st, I believe it was.
Okay.
Yep. So the product itself is relatively new, but the research on it's probably a decade's worth of research that's behind it.
We just brought this up earlier this year. We were like, I wonder if there's something out there that you can put in a pond, and it wasn't long after.
It was like 2 weeks after I came across your stuff, and I sent it over to him. And I'm like, look at this shit. Like, and another guy that we were talking to, that's a pretty big. He dives into it quite a bit too, just for the sake of wanting to figure things out and keep a healthy herd and stuff.
Yep.
He was like, that is absolutely awesome that they finally somebody came out with something more to combat this stuff with.
Well, because let's be honest, we have everything figured out for deer feed, for deer mineral. That stuff's rinse and repeat at this point. I mean, it's just a different jug with a different label on it. I mean, it just is, but water's been missing this whole time. And like me as an aquatic biologist, I got excited when water became a trend. But then when people started becoming experts, I'm like, man, I've been talking this forever. What the hell? It's finally a thing. Finally, So I'm excited. But then, just like everything, people get all excited and forget the maintenance after. Like, I mean, just a simple correlation: air fryer. All right, everyone loved them. Every single person bought one, but then they realized, like, holy crap, these things get gross, and they realized they got to clean them and all this shit. Yeah, there's maintenance. Whoa. Work, the 4-letter word, it's so scary, so to me that's the next building block is water. And when water is so important, like we stated earlier, that's the most important thing for a whitetail's nutrition, in my opinion, because if water goes down, it's directly correlated to forage consumption. If they're not eating, that directly correlates to their health and body weight, fawning, survival. Before you know, you don't have a herd. It all starts with water. That's numero uno. So why not take care of that source, especially when people are putting them in nonstop? I mean, the amount of ponds I go and see nowadays, I never thought I'd be doing it, but people are bringing me on their hunting property, and I'm like, oh, are we doing a consult for your whole land? Nope, just the water. I'm like, that's weird. I'd rather walk the whole property and see what's going on. But, all right, well, look at your ponds, but they're everywhere now. I mean, everyone's doing a tank. Everyone's doing a deer pond, you name it. But it's great to see, but their maintenance always has to go with it, and it's everything we do as a hunter. It's no different than going to your stands. Like I just did that yesterday, where I went and changed all my ratchet straps out. All right, are you the guy that leaves them in there for 10 years? Yeah, this maybe not be for you if you're also risking your life and getting in your stand. So, so it's not going to be for everyone. I mean, no, like I've heard some guys are like, they'll say it's a scam, a gimmick, snake oil. I had one guy compare it to the Acorn Cruncher, which just blew my mind. Like, the guy probably is the one that bought the Acorn Cruncher.
Yeah.
But but with that said, this is all science based. It'd be different if I was just some random Joe that's like, oh, I used this once in the pond I own. No, this was based. I'm basing my whole career as aquatic biologist behind this product. All my research, all my clients I've ever had, all the colleagues I know. I mean, some of the people in the aquatics industry are some of the smartest people I've ever met in the world. I'm dealing with people that literally are developing products across the hall from stem cell research. This next tier microbiologists and entomologists and phycologists, ichthyologists. I mean, these guys are, terrestrial to me is easy. It's always been easy, when you're doing aquatics, because we have water that is unpredictable. Buckthorn, like something like that, super simple for me. All right, it stays there, it doesn't move. Okay, I can take care of that. oh, but now I have a 1,000-acre lake that the water moves nonstop, has fluctuations, has runoff events, has ways that the water's leaving, whether it be a stream, creek. We have a constant changing thing, so we always have had to adapt that way, and that's where this product comes in place. Is it's always adaptation, and that's where I've always told everyone, anyone that's ever interested in using this product, my email is free for everyone to use. Email the heck out of me. I mean, I'll give you my number. I don't care. Send me pictures. I'll give you a custom pond management protocol for your property of what you got to do, even with treatments, because that's, once again, I was a commercial applicator, so there too, if you have algae issues, you have all this stuff. I can tell you step on step. All right, if your point A is here and your pond's a shithole, I'll tell you how to get to that pristine water quality where you have healthier fish, healthier wildlife, healthier waterfall, all that stuff. It's all the science behind it is backed by aquatic biology, by, like I said, professors, by different people in my field. I don't know, to me, it's just one of those things. It's not a gimmick. It gets me riled up, as you can tell, when I hear that stuff. But compared to the Acorn Cruncher, that was just, whoa.
Yeah, that's a pretty dirty one there, man.
Might as well said rub slime while we're at it. I mean, man.
Yeah.
Well, cool, brother. I think that about wraps it up for me. I had a few things written down, and we kind of covered that. And I know we're getting about the hour mark. I don't want to keep you all night long, but it was awesome talking with you, and I definitely learned a lot of stuff. So
For sure.
Yeah, and and I've probably forgotten more than most people know about water. So it's one of those things that something pops up, another question, whether it be you guys or your viewers, your listeners, like I said, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always open to answer. I want people to do it right rather than fail the first time. I mean, that was just, like I said, I have 2 decades of this experience. I'd rather pass that along to the guy trying to do it right, trying to fix this issue. And the goal is, as a team of hunters and outdoor professionals, is we got to reduce the issue that's obviously trying to take away our resource.
absolutely. And is there there's a website, obviously, that people can go on to find the product? I don't have that one written down.
Yeah, so it's ehd-fence.com, and fence is spelled like defense, so like for football, so ehd-fence.com. Some of my articles are on there. Actually, right now we have 20% off on the product too right now, so anyone that wants to get on it, I mean, you're getting a heck of a deal. I think it's ends up being like $185 for the whole kit, and what's nice about it is the shelf life is 3 to 5 years. So if you buy it now, you don't use it all, just keep it from freezing and you're good to go. But if people want more information, we're on YouTube. I've been saving all the podcasts I've ever done or videos I've done on there. But Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, we're active everywhere.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us an hour of your time, and hopefully we can link up again here soon and even see how your season and stuff went over there.
Hopefully better
This
than
guy
last
here-
year. So
This guy here does quite a bit of hunting in Wisconsin, so
Nice.
he might be kind of rattling your cage a little bit. But
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'm pursuing a deer that I actually he's still wearing my broadhead. So we'll see where this season ends up.
nice.
Yeah, one of those.
but he still made it, and you have pictures and everything on him, huh?
I have pictures of him. Unfortunately, though, he went down probably about 30 inches. So I think
wow.
the wound definitely hurt him this year. So I'm kind of like teeter-tottering. He's 5. Like, do I shoot him or do I just gamble and hope to God a neighbor doesn't kill him? So it's just that. We'll see when he walks out, and then I'll make a decision.
Yeah. That's how I try to base it too, and I know what happens.
Michigan 11-pointer down.
Yeah. All right, Zach. Well, good talking to you, dude, and hopefully we get to do it again soon here.
Perfect. Thank you much, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a good night.
ya.
Thanks, Zach.
Yep.
No, that was pretty cool. I learned a lot there. I mean,
There's a lot of knowledge there, so that was good.
Definitely. I mean, I know you say it now, right? But we haven't had, that I know of, any EHD specifically, within 100 miles from us that I'm
aside
aware of.
that one deal when they drained that frickin' lake down there.
Oh yeah, that is true.
But they frickin' covered that up pretty good.
But then you look at that lake, and all the runoff and all the other crap like he was talking about that was in that lake.
Dude, that thing is green every year.
Right.
It seems like
So,
like
prime
almost like
example.
neon.
Slimy.
Yeah.
Prime example of exactly what he was talking about there,
Yep.
really.
Yep.
So,
So yeah, definitely. I mean, because I'm already making plans in my mind to
Back there.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna end up just renting a skiddy and like actually doing it in that low spot of my food plot area, like a,
Little
kind of like
pond.
a little pond area type
Yeah.
deal. So that'll definitely be something that I'll be looking into
well,
for next year.
and hopefully you can get them to drink that water versus that.
Yeah, this
You know,
that
where all
because
the-
that drainage ditch that runs alongside my road there, that thing can get pretty gnarly at times too.
Well,
and
it
there's trails in
doesn't-
and out of there.
It
so-
doesn't stay full, so there's that mud and there's potential for that to be there.
Right.
You know, but
Yep.
Just things to think about, I guess. You know,
For
when
sure.
when you put it when you hear it from him the way he kind of explains it, it only makes sense if you are going to be doing things like that on your property.
Right,
I mean,
yep.
look at the money we spend on other shit that like, you know, if it's a smaller source,
why not
Make
treat
sure
it?
everything's
right, that
running
$9 a
tip-top.
month or whatever it is.
Well, you're just
I
making
mean,
your pond better and you're making the water healthier, and
Yep.
it's good for everything.
Right.
All of
The
the
ecosystem.
ecosystem. So it's not just for the deer, but
Exactly.
right.
it'll
everything.
benefit them the most.
Which we like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the one thing I guess with our water holes is that they pretty much freeze out or freeze
Yeah.
to the bottom, which probably helps.
And we
Yeah.
get that, we get them frosts early to where,
Yeah.
mosquitoes are usually gone here by mid-September.
Yeah.
But this year, I mean, every year it's different. Like he said,
Been warmer later. So.
changing, it's always changing. But
Yeah, I mean the mild winters are nice, but they cause a lot of havoc. I've like even talking with Nick before we even started shooting this thing. It's like again with the deer flies this year. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's got to be just all the mild winters you would think over and over and over again that all the larvae and shit are surviving wherever they. I don't know where deer flies hatch from, but it just seems like they're getting worse every year. They're here longer every year.
Paul is saying the same thing. Maybe it's just a bad year with all the rain that we've had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I don't know if they hatch
But-
out of water or out of mud or what they come out of, but I know that you might not survive if you go out in my food plot too long.
I wouldn't. I got stung. I went and just freshened up that bear bait, right? And I didn't take a long sleeve and I didn't bring no spray. And yeah, it wasn't long. I was doing the dance out there and trying to get away. And
Yeah, Christy got nailed on the ear yesterday, and her ear was all swelled up, and hurting today.
Yeah,
and
they-
it's just like
meat hungry little bastards is what
they are, and they're biting you the second they're landing on you.
Yeah, you don't have a fighting chance.
But anyway, I think we can probably wrap this one up. That was for me. Like I said again, it's gaining the knowledge
Well,
on it.
it's
and
something we really haven't had the experience with in this area, like I
Right.
said, so it is something to maybe get on top of if you start to see some of that crap in your ponds where you can start to treat it and keep it away. So
Exactly.
Yeah, and we'll probably end up catching up with him again here, more on like the land management side and stuff like that in the future here. He's a very knowledgeable guy. Be cool to kind of keep up with him and see how his deer season's going and everything else too. So
sure.
For sure, yeah.
next week, no idea what's on the docket. Things may jump up, things may not, but I kind of got one that I want to get to sooner than later with just the three of us to discuss. So
I think I know about this one.
yeah, you heard about it today. So in the meantime, yeah, we will thank everybody. Thank you, Zach, for coming on tonight. Thank you to our partners, Monster Buck Food Plot Seed, Dialed Archery, Lone Wolf Custom Gear, and Spartan Forge Mapping. And we will see you guys next week.